Welcome to Legacy Conversations, a channel where we preserve military memories and history.
Hello everyone, it's Chris here. Thank you for being here, watching this video. It's a series I'm making about George M. James books. There was a previous series, but very short, 5-10 minutes, and right in the beginning. Most people didn't bother to watch, which is of course your choice. And I think that's one of the problems we have these days with internet, YouTube and those places. I mean, we are spoiled. You can really go anywhere and find lots and lots of good videos. So I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful when you watch these particular videos and even the others, which is of course also very, very interesting. And you have to forgive me. I don't know which video you've watched before, so I might repeat myself in the beginning to say to you that if you support the George M. James books or the books under my own name or Rebecca's books, you know what? The little bit of money we make out of that, and it's really little, comes back to the show. It does support the show. It does help us to do what we do, and we can, bring the videos for you for free. Because that's what we want to do. We never want to charge people to see videos. If we wanted to do that, I would have gone the Vimeo route or the pay-as-you-go, that type of thing. But that was never the intention. The intention and the instruction I got, and you all know the story, but not a vision, more like a dream, an idea in my head, to record you and to tell our story to the world. You cannot do that with pay-as-you-go or that type of thing. You just can't. You have to get it out for free, and hopefully people will spread the word around and so forth. What I did not expect is that it would take over my life. And that's basically all I do now, besides helping with a guest house renovations. And of course, I need to be a good husband to Rebecca as well when she needs assistance with anything and so forth. So the point I'm making is, guys, if you can support the show by getting hold of the books, it's all in audio, and all of them are in hardcover, softcover, or most of them, 99%, as well as Kindle. And as I said in other videos, they will never be available in the Apple format of EPUB, simply because I think Apple is a terrorist supporter organization. And I say that because of an attack which took place in California, I think in 2015, where some idiot started shooting at people. And then, of course, he was killed at San Bernardino, or a place like that. And I actually had a friend who lives close by to that place, and she is actually in some of the books as a character. Now, very interesting is that the police, and of course the FBI, got hold of a guy's cell phone and laptops and things like that. And it's standard in counterterrorism investigations is that you will always look at connections. You say, okay, who was this guy calling to? What was he doing on the internet? Was he researching how to make bombs, how to do such an attack? Was he being briefed, or being under the influence of people outside the country? That happens a lot, where they've been compromised slowly until they actually go and do the deed. We've seen it with the ISIS brides, those foolish young women who left the UK and other places to go and marry an ISIS fighter, and then they arrived, and of course they got pregnant within a month. And then, of course, most of them actually died, but not before they had about 10 children each. A little bit or less, but you know what I mean. This is just the way. So it's very important to be able to see on the cell phone what this guy was actually doing. But his cell phone was locked. And of course encrypted. Not really, but that's what they maintain, all of them, including WhatsApp and the rest, and Signal, what have you. Signal, by the way, was started with CIA funding money. So you really think they can't read your messages? Let me explain to you that it's just a matter of who's reading it. You want to take a telegram? Well, then the French and the Russians will be reading you. You go WhatsApp, and then it will be the Americans, no such agency, NSA, and they will of course share with the Brits, and the Brits will then go through the 5 eyes and the 10 eyes and the 20 eyes and whatever crap they have there. But they are intercepting you as they are listening to us right now as we speak. We know it. It's if you don't want to have your thoughts known or whatever, then you have to use VPNs, but even that won't really work. The best way out is just to keep things in your head. But anyway, that's life. That's how it is. So let's talk about Codename Ghost. Now, Codename Ghost is a book I wrote before Legacy started. In fact, all of these books, most of them, I think out of the 54, about 3 of them were written after it started, after Legacy started. And it's astonishing how much inside the books are confirmed by these people without even knowing it. By which I mean is they wouldn't necessarily have read the book, and so they just tell their story. And bingo, most of what they tell is already in the books. And I wanted to do something about South African submarines. And remember now, there is that Daphne class submarine, the Johanna, these days known as Sagai, but most people refer to as Johanna, was there in Simonstad with Admiral Sutherland. We've made several episodes on that, and if you're there, man, just go and visit this thing. It is really, I mean, this is fantastic. I think it's the only one submarine museum in entire Africa, probably in the Southern Hemisphere, but I might be wrong. Might be something in Australia or one of those places. I don't know, but definitely in Africa. And it's a fantastic experience. And we, you know what, Legacy did contribute financially to this thing. Yes, you will find our names there on the bunks where the people sleep. They have this thing, if you put in certain amount of money, you get like a little flyky or something there with your name on it. So you'll find me and Rebecca there. But we've done it actually on behalf of Legacy, not so much of us. So if you can visit that submarine, then please do so. But the book is about new submarines. It's not so new anymore, but when the book plays off, it is, of course, they're fairly new. That would be the Type 209s. Now, I know the first thing people will say to me is, yeah, of course, they don't sail anymore. You know, in the book, they are sailing. But besides that, I spoke to the admirals and they said to me, the submarines are operational. So I don't know. You hear these stories and then you talk to the people and you find out something completely different. It's like when I was at Tempe and the other bases, like the Special Forces headquarters at Spescop in Pretoria. And you meet these people and you walk around there actually, and you don't just go on a little 1 minute TikTok video where somebody is lying there asleep at the gate as if you never slept on duty. And then you just say, look at this, everybody's bad. You find this very fat woman in uniform, which she shouldn't be. She's a disgrace to a uniform. But when everybody jumps on a conclusion, just look at these people. Guys, you need to stop that attitude. I would beg you, stop it. It's not true. If you go to those places, and I've been there, and I was impressed. I was really impressed. And there are episodes coming out where I speak to senior officers, general rank, and we spoke about this. And we're going to bring you a video on the difference between a peace operation and war. Not the same thing, mate. It's totally not the same thing. And you have to judge according to what the people were doing. But if you look at Bangui, the fight there with Special Forces in supporting and paratroopers, man, you'll find out they killed a lot more than them that were killed. And if you think that they had no support weapons, nothing whatsoever. I mean, at one stage we were fighting with shovels and knives and fists and boots, whatever they could. Then they did fantastically well. So So I'm not against the new Defence Force at all, because I have some interaction with them. But it's for you to decide. I don't care. In the books anyway, these things are operational. And it's fascinating when I spoke to the admirals, they confirm what I said in the books as well, is that South African submarines are actually very, very respected by the rest of the world. And they are respected because they are virtually untraceable. You don't know where they are. They are the ultimate ace card in a conventional sense, but they are used for unconventional warfare as well. It comes out in the books. And whenever there's a Western or even Chinese or Russian, it doesn't matter, any nuclear type of submarine close to South African shores or in an exercise, and they go up against the South African Navy submarines, they lose. They've lost. They've always lost. They haven't won once since 1969. Not even once. You should be proud of it. You really should be proud. And then, of course, there was that incident with a submarine, which is in this book in a fictional way, the Mantishishi, where they surfaced behind the waves and they were trying to recover people. On a helicopter came, people got washed overboard. Some of them died. And of course, the entire community went like, oh, look at this. Oh. I spoke to the admirals about that as well. Now, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Navy. Guys, please don't put words in my mouth. But they explained to me that the commander who died there that day died because their head was smashed by the waves against the steel hull of a submarine. Now, if you should go to a submarine base or to the Asagai, the museum ship, you will find that they've cut one of the old submarines in half, and it's standing there. It looks like a circle of steel. That steel is this thick. I'm not lying to you. I was very surprised. It is like humongously thick steel, which I have in those things. And those were the old Daphnes. Probably a better steel in the 209s. And I can fully understand that you can hit your head against that, a wave smashing against you and die because of it. And it's very sad and it's unfortunate. But there were people also saying that very respected military people will say you train hard and you fight easy. Lessons were learned from that incident. The same one where the one submarine went too far down and it crashed into the bottom of the ocean. Everybody went on. Whoa. All these things are discussed in the books, not the one where the commander died, because it's after but before. You know what? It is so that sometimes when a submarine comes into land special forces, it comes very close to the beach, especially the new ones, not the old Daphnes. Come very close, and they actually put that thing down on the bottom of the ocean. They put it down on the sand, and there it lies. And that's how they go in and they go out. They have that capacity these days to do it. They don't have to surface like in our time and get the guys overboard there. No, that's not being used anymore. It can be used, but probably not. So in a previous book, codename Oath 19, and I will make a video on that sometime. In Oath 19, we looked at deep diving, in other words, technical diving, and it comes from the book before that. Now, the books follow each other. Each is an individual story. You don't need to read the other books, but if you want to know what happened further, you have to read the other book because it follows in sequence. But each is a story on its own, This actually comes from a book even before Oath 19, codename Moonlight. Now, Moonlight, the name, and I will make a video on that as well, has to do with Earl Grey moonlight. It's a type of tea. And it's a tea which my late wife, Melissa, used to love to drink. I never even tasted it before she arrived. And so we called the book codename Moonlight. But in that book, they encounter might be Chinese, might be North Korean, I'm not too sure. Wasn't sure those days either. Like a spy trawler who was in South African waters very close to a hole in the wall. and they actually sunk this thing by gunfire. Oh, not really. There's a plot. There's a twist to the plot, but anything the thing is sunk after one hell of a, real gunfight there on the open oceans. Zimbabwean intelligence is also involved as the enemy, as they often are. Go and look at the book, which is of a video which I made about the Zimbabwean heat squads, which is walking around in South Africa or used to. But anyway, to make a long story short, in 2019, they want to search this vessel, of course, for, whatever of value from an intelligence viewpoint you can get. But so they approach it from under the water through a submarine. I don't want to go into too many details. I will talk about those books when I get to it. The point I'm trying to make is that the submarines are used operationally, the South African submarines, and they are really very elite. In fact, the figures I have is that there's just over 1,000 submariners who actually qualified since 1969. It is also so that some of the officers who went over to France to get trained initially were seen as by the French themselves as the best submarine officers they've ever seen in their lives. Not a joke, that's their own words. And where we spoke with, I think it's Admiral de Toey, where he spoke about his time and commanding a submarine during one of the attacks. I think it's off Amazon. Go and listen to what that guy has to say. It's really, really a fascinating episode. It's in Afrikaans, but you know what? He just told some submarine stories, and of all the people, it's the hardest for me to get hold of it. It's hardest to get hold of the tiffies and the chefs, simply because the tiffies and the chefs don't think that they should be talking because they don't think they have a story. Man, you're so wrong. We don't want only special forces, paratroopers, Kufut, 3-2 battalion. We want the entire story. We need to speak to the logistics people as well. So if you're listening here, please don't let Satan tell you that we are not interested in you because you weren't a paratrooper or whatever. Don't do that. Come and talk to me. It's very important that we understand the entire picture. And so also our children, of course, because, at the end of the day, we will never escape apartheid. Tag will always be on us. It's like the Germans with Hitler. Even all these years later, people are still, especially if you're British and an idiot, you would march around, Sieg Heil, that type of nonsense you shout at Germans. It is quite funny, but you know what? It's old. We've moved on. So we'll never escape that tag. But having said that, as I said in other videos as well, is that I don't really think the people who were fighting for apartheid, they were fighting communism, no doubt. And you also fight for your mates, and you fight for your unit. And you guys didn't run away. That's a big deal. So anyway, there was also an exercise in 2008. It also comes out in this book, where the Mantasishi, that is the same submarine, we had that problem with the commander who died and the other two divers who also passed. They went up against a NATO squadron. In other words, the NATO ships arrived there. I think they were from the US, Netherlands, Germany, Norwegian, all the NATO Europe countries. They all came there, and then they had this combined exercise, and they were supposed to protect like a merchant ship, and then this South African submarine would try and, attack it and blah, blah, blah. It turned out that the South African submarine sank, now in commas, of course, sank every single one of those NATO warships in the exercise, and sank also the target, the original target. It was called Exercise Amazolo. Let me tell you, that created shock waves through the Western navies. Because if you talk to the average Western intelligence officer or a Western Navy officer, and you say, well, South Africa has submarines. Do you know that? Modern ones, good ones, and they know how to use them. And they are being used. They look at you like, I haven't even heard about it. They're that stupid. They don't know. They just don't know. But then, of course, the South African Navy also in exercises with the Chinese Navy as well as the Russian one. What the hell is the problem with that? South Africa is a BRICS nation. Hello. It's not a NATO nation. NATO is the enemy. We have to wake up to that fact. It's not what it used to be in our time. And these books play off after our time. It's got nothing to do with the National Intelligence Service, where I rate as low as, well, I don't rate them highly. But let them come. Let them come and speak to me and tell their stories. We'll treat them with respect and hear what great deeds they did, of which I don't know of any. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So the book is about the submarines. It's about how to use these submarines and how to use them for electronic surveillance, as well as how to, just to use them operationally. That's what they're doing. But there is, like in all these books, of course, more than one thing going on at the same time. And one of the other things which is going on there is the WERTZ papers, WERTZ. Now, that is interesting because many people here wouldn't even know what I'm talking about now. Now, WERTZ, you spell W-E-R-Z, WERTZ, I suppose it's German. Now, what the WERTZ papers is in the Second World War, there was actually a very good Nazi spy ring operating in South Africa. And it was ran, if I'm correct, from Lorenzo Marx from Maputo, which of Portugal, of course, were sort of neutral in that war. And they were running a spy ring, and South Africa was not neutral. It followed through Jannie Smuts. Fascinating Jannie Smuts as well. You know, he's the only guy who signed both the League of Nations as well as the United Nations as the founding papers. He became a field marshal, of course, in the British Army. Lots of people admire him. My family, my dad and people before him were all supper. In other words, a South African party. In other words, Jan Smuts supporters. I myself have serious doubts about the man, but I will never deny his major role in history. And Jannie Smuts, we would have recorded the Jan Smuts Museum there in, what do you call it, Pretoria, because they got a fantastic museum there. If you haven't been there, please go. Got good food there too, man. Really, really nice. I went there with Rebecca many years ago, but it used to be really nice where Jannie Smuts were living in Pretoria East, around about there. But sadly, when I contacted them, they just couldn't care less about legacy and whatever publicity we could bring to them. They just basically ignored us, basically never came back to us. So I will never record Jan Smuts ever in return. It's just not going to happen. But I will say this to you, if you can get there, then please do so. But anyway, the WERTZ papers is very fascinating because after the war, there was an investigation and it was done by a judge of the High Court, Supreme Court in those days. And let me tell you, as an attorney, as a man who practiced law, I don't do anymore. I'm not one anymore. A Supreme Court judge in those days were extremely highly valued. He's valued so much that you have to actually salute the man. He's seen as an officer. He's a man of great experience. You will not get a judge in South Africa in the old days less than, I think the youngest was about 44 years old, by which time he has 20 years experience, which is not a lot, but he has enough. And they all in those days came from the advocates, who people see as more smart than an attorney. I don't know why. It's the same. You have the same degrees, but you have a totally different training afterwards. And that's the thing. You cannot practice law with just your law degrees. You're not good enough. In fact, you know very little. You know so much, but you know so little. You have to go through the practical stage as well. And then it takes another 5 years before you are actually confident in doing things. I don't know today, guys. I do count one or two attorneys still as friends, but most of them are just drifted off. Different worlds, not for me anymore, never was actually. But there was an investigation and it became known as the Wertz papers. And then this investigation then actually provided a whole bunch of documents. And in that documents, all those who were involved with the Nazis during World War II is actually fingered. And they became, of course, many of them became very famous politicians. All of them are dead now. So you might ask me and say to me, okay, but why not just reveal the Wertz papers then? Let's see who was supporting who there, because you know that Afrikaner, especially in South Africa during World War II, was split into two, as with the First World War, because Germany wasn't seen as the enemy. But at the same time, the way killing Jews is not seen as an Afrikaner thing either. We actually like our Jews. We always say that if we have a Jew boykie in our rugby team, we normally win. And so we're not into that type of let's wipe the Jews out. Anti-Semitism is really not part of the Afrikaner setup. But anti-British definitely was. Probably still might be in certain cases. I like to take the mickey out of them. I don't like Winston Churchill. Not at all. But I have reasons why I don't, and I have a right not to like him. And it comes out in many books, in this one as well. Well, I'll tell you one thing about Winston Churchill. That fellow actually understood navies. He fully understood the power of maritime warfare. And he knew that if Germany could succeed by the U-boats to cutting off England, it's over. It's gone. And we spoke about that in previous videos as well. I think it was codenamed Lucy, where I explained to you that the US Navy ain't as good as they think they are, and the NATO navies, by which I mean Europe, I can only say to you, ach, sies toch. But I'm not going to annoy people again to explain to you that the Royal Navy has more admirals than warships, and the two carriers can hardly leave a harbor before they return with faults or half-sinking. And they don't even have aircraft for them, and their navy is totally unbalanced. So that the Chinese are building an entire Royal Navy every 2 years. Yeah, and that it's bigger than the US Navy now, and then you will get and you can't say, yeah, but those are small boats, you know, they are not nuclear. You don't know what you're talking about. I said without any respect, you got no idea what you're talking about. The Chinese can build 228 or 258, I'm not sure which, times more ships than what you can do. You can't build ships. That's why you have no navy. Your navy you have is it's run down. It's nothing. And your nuclear carriers means nothing. Can sink them. It comes out in this book as well, Codename Ghost. We look at how nuclear carriers can be sunk. Of course, times have moved on since I wrote the book. Now with your hypersonic missiles and things, you are really in trouble. But anyway, we were speaking about the Wertz papers, and what is really fascinating is the Wertz papers then disappeared. Yeah, they disappeared. You will remember that in 1948, the National Party took over and started apartheid officially, even though apartheid actually started in around about 1910, actually before that, when the Brits took over after the Second Anglo-Boer War, as they committed all the war crimes. Must I explain again to you about the concentration camps? It seems you don't get the point. One guy wrote to me and said to me, it's so long ago, perhaps we should just let it go. Yeah, well, we apologize. Apologize and start paying us out. Do what you did for the Jews. I think that's good. Go and do what the swine in Switzerland did in the 90s. You know, when the US under Billy Goat Clinton started saying to him, I think you should pay these Jews out for the money you stole, which they did steal, because people would deposit into the Swiss banks. Then they were taken to the camps, they died, and now the money is just lying there, and the swine, of course, is just using it. So it's extremely funny, actually. We write about it in one of the Win books, When and Where. They could prove about $283 million, which were deposited like that. Then they got this very left-wing liberal type of professor, and he came up with about 400 million. And they paid out 1.2 billion. They paid out 3-4 times more because Uncle Sam has spoken and the swine had to touch their toes, man. And then comes the sad story, because only about $7,000 went to each of the victims' families. The rest of the money was slipped by the Jewish organizations. Apparently, that's what's written in many books. And they built museums and things. And if they built a museum in, say, in New York, then the state of New York has to pay for its upkeep as well as its water, lights, all those things. They're good business people. They're very good business people. But anyway, the papers disappeared. Around about in 1974, 75, 76, it was last seen in the state archives. And then it was never seen again. So the investigation came just before Jannie Smuts lost his power in 1948. And then this report was definitely read by Dr. Malan and the rest. And probably the Broederbond got involved there as well, which is nothing but a Freemason copy, serving Satan in my eyes. You think I'm wrong? Come and talk to me. Explain to us your broederhood and explain to us why the broeders were basically every dominee, every magistrate, and every judge, and every senior officer in the army and the police, everywhere. Explain that to me. Come. Standing on the invitation, guys, we need to understand what happened. I'm quite sure the broeders started off well to take care of our Afrikaner against the English. I admire that. But even my own father was asked to join them. He refused. Yeah, and he got transferred so much around that I went to about 10 schools. Yeah. Yeah, they knew how to look after each other. But they were not as corrupt as the current people, we have to say that. But anyway, it disappeared, so we don't know. We don't know where's the those papers. In the book, we reveal whatever we can reveal, and you can read the book what we know about it, but really, it's one of those mysterious things. Funny enough, it never came out at the Truth Commission or anything like that. It would be fascinating to know what happened. I would be fascinated. Anyway, then another subject which we cover there is the ones of torpedoes. Now, during the Falkland War, the Argentine Navy also had the Type 209s, not the most modern ones which we got later, but they had them. And the Brits, of course, were sailing off with their 2 aircraft carriers that had nuclear bombs on board, which they said they had them there because they couldn't, they had no time to offload them. Do you believe that? Really? Do you believe that? I don't. But anyway, with the help of their mates, the US, of course, they were totally having all the intelligence they needed. He just came out the other day that the Royal Navy nuclear submarines, the one with the boomers, is carrying the nuclear missiles. They cannot actually launch them without US approval. Oh, shame. Oh, shame. Which means they have no deterrent, actually, because Uncle Sam will decide when you launch or not. And where they tried to launch them a few years ago, twice, I think, they failed. They failed. So, yeah, it's one of those things, a great delight to see that Senior van Rensburg's, vision which he had. I wouldn't call the man a prophet or prophecy, not at all. But his vision he had of him about being a Navy is actually coming true. Fascinating, these things. But anyway, would you believe that it came out later that Argentine submarines actually did approach these carriers. They tried to shoot at them with their torpedoes. Imagine if they actually hit one and it sank with its nuclear weapons aboard. Yeah, yeah, think about that. But the torpedoes malfunctioned. Then it came out later that all the torpedoes which I got, brand new from the supplier, was deliberately sabotaged. They would never have worked. Yeah, you go and trust the Western arms manufacturers' emotions of death. It is amazing. Can you believe that? But that's what came out, and that's what we report in the book as well. You see, guys, the books are not just books. It's a good story. Yes, there's a good story. There's a lot of banter. There's things going on, especially between the two main characters who sort of have actually later actually get married. But at first, they don't like each other that much. But they do fall in love at some stage. It is actually a love story in the background. But you have all these interesting things as well in the books. And what also came out is that the Chinese Navy and the Russians too now, it's confirmed. It wasn't confirmed when I wrote the book, but I knew about it because I speak to people. And they actually have something which the West still don't even have on the drawing board. It's like, hypersonic missiles, which the Russians has been using for years now. There's no answers against them, which Iran has used against Israel, and they went through, they struck the base. And no, Israel did not defeat Iran's air defense at all. They had to run away. They left. They couldn't carry on their attack. Don't believe the stories you read in the New York Times and everywhere. It's not true. I know, because people speak to me. But the Western navies don't even have these things on paper, man. Never mind in production. And yet you walk around here with going to bully everybody. You just need to arrive. You're going to just... Those days are gone, guys. Those days are gone. I've been warning about BRICS and all these things in my book since 2014. You know why? Because I did the research. And I started speaking with people. And also what, of course, I saw in the previous life. And I came to a conclusion: you're going to lose the war badly. You're going to lose it. And I started warning. Well, and then we ran into all sorts of trouble because I just wouldn't listen. And then became a racist thing. Oh, wat is 'n South African nou? Wat is 'n Afrikaner nou? Yeah, you're from Africa. What do you know? They said that to me. Same thing I felt in Switzerland. It's absolute racism. They don't believe you because you're from Africa. They don't believe you have a good navy and a good submarines because it's an African navy. Cannot be. Oh, you have paratroopers. Oh, they're from Africa. You see what I mean, guys? This is racism. It needs to stop. It's basically the same. And don't shoot me when I say this, but if you have a problem with the National Defence Force because we are black, many of them, it is racism, mate. You have to look at yourself. Go and judge the guy not on his skin color, but on what he does and what he stands for. Don't just judge a guy because he's black. I will remind you, 5 Reconnaissance Commando Regiment, 99% black. People like Hans Lowe. And if I can ever get Hans Lowe to talk to me about what they experience as black soldiers in that regiment, you would cry. At this stage, he's not willing to speak. But he told me in private, I can tell you, and it's not a good story which came out there. But they were fantastic. You can't tell me they were bad. 3-2 Battalion, when you tell me the black soldiers they were bad? No, can't tell me that. 3-1 Battalion, 5-4. Shall I mention all of them? Guys, let us not judge that. Let's not go that route. That's exactly what your enemy wants you to do. God created everybody equal. Not everybody has the same chances in life. Just remember that. Not everyone has the same chances. Anyway, it came out in the book that the Chinese Navy and the Russians now as well, it's confirmed, actually has like little killer submarine launched robots which attacks torpedoes. It's like a drone under the water. Like you shoot at it and it launches these drone things and it circles its own submarine and then it goes and attacks the incoming torpedoes, which means that you will have one hell of a time to try and shoot and sink a submarine under the water with torpedoes because you don't have the technology. You don't. They can defend themselves. But then they came out with a thing which actually blew up that submarine, the Kursk, right in the beginning after Putin took over, Mr. Putin. And the thing sunk, which I think that's what happened. It's called the Shikfal or something in Russian, called the Squall. It is a torpedo which can go at 200 knots, which is about 450 kilos an hour, if I'm not mistaken. It is extremely quick. Man, it is like you can't believe how quick this thing is. And it has a 460-pound warhead, which is not a lot. It's less than the older Second World War torpedoes have, but there is such a thing as heating, and also, of course, modern warships are not armored. And if it's used under the water and that thing hits you, yeah, it's the end of your submarine. Bye-bye, you're dead. In this book, they try to capture one, actually, from a Chinese submarine. How do you do that? How do you get them to shoot a torpedo at you and capture it? Go and read the book. In the last chapter, you'll find out what happened. One character was almost abused from behind by this torpedo. It's quite funny. Did it happen? I've heard rumors. I'm not sure. But anyway, you can go and figure that one out. It's very fascinating, these things. It also came out that, would you believe it? It's amazing which came out, which comes out in these books. It also came out that the Russians, and by that I include the Chinese now, actually have a much better outlook on safety of submariners than the US. For many, many years, I think for something like 30 years, the entire generation, the US Navy never trained their submariners how to escape from it. The idea was, look, if it sinks and you're dead. Like, what was that one which sank in the 1960s, Fresher, which was sank because it was badly built. That's why it sank. But the Russians are not like that. They've learned their lessons. So their modern fleet, and they have a modern fleet, there's like a rescue buoy on it, like a mini submarine inside the submarine. The entire conning tower, the sail, as they call it today, is actually a rescue raft. It can detach. So if you can get into that thing, they can come up, they can surface from, I think in the book they mentioned 2,000 feet below the water, which they came up. Of course, this thing just drifts around. It doesn't have engines or anything, but there's no way in hell you can do that as a human being. For you to get out of a submarine and it's described in great detail in this book and others, I think of 19, is one horrible experience. Because they basically put you in a chamber and then they flood this chamber, then they open the hatches, you go up, not all the way, you go up to the deck, you take whatever you need and then you go up further. Sitting in that chamber while the water is coming in is not for the faint of hearted. Let me tell you that. It's not. I really admire those people who just sit there like nothing bothers them. And there's a lot of female operators too who actually do that in my world. Anyway, really fantastic people. So we look at that too, and we look at the utter lack of escape gear on modern Western submarines. It's a few attitude towards me. It is not to say that the thing cannot sink. Submarines do sink. We know about it. And normally when they sink, there's total loss of life, but it might be possible to escape, and definitely with the Chinese and the Russian ones, which we discussed by name. We would say this class, this, and give all the statistics. So that is the book. The other interesting thing which is there, and we speak about it in an episode which is still going to come out, is where they do a parachute jump from a Roy Falk helicopter, where you have two operators sitting on the wings, and you have one hanging on a rope below it, being towed, and then they just do a parachute jump into the ocean, go down, and rendezvous with a submarine under the water. Can that be done? Yes, of course it can be done. It's not quite often, actually. You can do that, but it takes guts. I mean, it takes very special people to do that type of thing. And it's fascinating because when I spoke to the test pilot, Trevor Ralston, I believe his name is, we'll have episodes on him as well. He spoke about the XP experimental model, which came just before the Roy Falk. And then we spoke about the Roy Falk also, both of them standing there at South Swartkops. Episodes are still coming out. And I asked him specifically about this thing that the Roy Falk was designed to actually have like the capacity to pick up pilots or whoever else on its wings. Let's say a guy gets shot down, Roy Falk comes in, still shooting, land, escape, crew, just jump aboard quickly, strap themselves there onto the wings, and off they go. Why not? Why not? Brilliant idea, but it apparently didn't go into production models. As far as we know, or perhaps the test pilot just didn't want to tell me. Guys, that's the story. That is codename Ghost. As you can see, there's really a lot of things inside it. It's a fantastic book to read. The links will be in the description. It's available on Amazon in audio as well as Kindle, hardcover, softcover. It's not in South Africa yet, as I explained to you. For me to put it in South Africa, I need to buy 10 books, and then it goes on print on demand. That's not a lot of money. It's about 2,000 rands, I suppose, to buy 10 books, cost price, perhaps a bit less, or perhaps a bit more. The thing is, when there's about 50 books, you're talking about 100,000 rands. And then it becomes a lot of money. It's not worth my while to do it. But I really hope you enjoy this book. Lots of interesting things in it. I haven't even touched half of it. No, not even a tenth. So God bless, and I'll see you again.